Hello there folks, welcome back to Motorcast Podcast, and today it's time for the MotoGP Podcast, the return of the MotoGP Podcast. Today with me and the Slovenian Toby and Beni to talk about today's race at Misano, the Marco Simoncelli circuit. And just before we start, obviously the last time we did a podcast I think was Austria, and we have had a race since that, haven't we? Where did we race somewhere? But anyway, I'm sure Benny will tell us.
The British Grand Prix.
There we go. How could I forget the British Grand Prix? But yeah, the British Grand Prix, of course, Marquez blew up and loads of things happened, but unfortunately not going to be reviewing that today. The first thing I'm going to say, though, obviously Rossi's broke his leg. Rossi's out the championship fight, and pretty dramatic, really, because, well, we didn't really expect it, first off. Obviously, a lot of the main drivers, do that, the motocross train. I think apart from Vinales, I think most of the top drivers said, look, we do motocross as well. It's not just Valentino. But what are your general thoughts, Benny, about Valentino being off?
Well, obviously it's very unfortunate, at his age, he's still very quick and everything. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a shame that, he broke his leg in the middle of a championship fight, especially just before his home Grand Prix in Misano, so... But I guess it's just part of the sport, they every time you go on a motorbike, you go push the limits, you obviously take quite a lot of risks, be it either on the track or on the dirt track. So yeah, just unfortunate that it happened when it did. So sadly, Rossi's probably out of the championship. But hopefully we'll see him back just as strong as ever, and maybe even next year challenging for the title again.
Yeah, definitely positivity is needed, because, at Misano today, you could just see the absolute mass of Rossi fans, and it was just incredible to see. Obviously, it's his home race, he wasn't there, which is a real shame, but of course, Dovizioso is really the lead driver, Italian-wise, at that race. But let's talk about Honda first. Obviously, Marquez won the Grand Prix. If you haven't watched it yet, sorry. But Danny Pedrosa only to P14. Would have been P15 if Zarco hadn't run out of fuel at the end. That was bizarre. But first off, well-deserved for Marquez today.
Yeah, obviously, he just did a Marquez, just a brilliant drive, no matter the conditions, and he was really quick, following Petrucci in the wet isn't quite an easy thing, so, and to even pass him on the last lap and pull away by quite a bit is just amazing by him. So, he just showed all his talent, and he's back in the lead of the championship, or should I say equal on points with Dovizioso, and considering Pedrosa had an absolutely horrid race, I don't know what was wrong, but he just was way off the pace. I don't know if I seen somebody so off the pace, but I know it just must have been something wrong with the bike setup or the tires. He was by far the slowest guy on track. He was even passed by Crutchlow and Baz, who fell at one point. So just a horrible day for Pedrosa, but hopefully he can bounce back next weekend in Aragon.
Yeah, definitely, completely agree there. So let's have a look at Ducati then next. Obviously, Dovizioso finished third in the end, Petrucci finished second, and the Kaiser Lorenzo. I said on British TV, of course, Lorenzo's led so many races at the start this year, not necessarily has crashed, but hasn't won that race. But Lorenzo led, then crashed. It was quite a weird accident, and it looked quite painful as well. Dovizioso finished third, and then we had Petrucci second, and Redding P7. So, really good day for Petrucci and Dovizioso, obviously the home crowd. What are your general thoughts on the days for sort of the Ducati riders and the Pramac drivers as well?
Well, considering Lorenzo, he was very uncharacteristically fast in the wet, In years past, when he was still on the Yamaha, when it was wet, he was just off the pace and couldn't really challenge any one of the top guys. But now on the Ducati, he seems a lot more at home in these wet conditions, and he really showed some pace today. But I guess he was just really on the limit, and in these kinds of tricky conditions, the smallest of mistakes can end your race, and that's just what happened to him. So yeah, Petrucci, brilliant race from him, impressing from in front of his home crowd in the wet. he just does very good in the wet, but he's just been the bridesmaid on so many occasions. It's a bit unfair, but he's just missing that slight little bit. And the Vizioso, a good ride in the end. He did. I think towards the end of the race, he didn't really push the limits. He knew that Vinales was quite a way back, and that he could just crash if he pushed too hard like Lorenzo did. So I think it was just a mature drive, not to push too hard towards the end and to just get the bike in a podium position and not lose too many points. And there's also Redding. He also had quite a good race considering his other results, in the wet and where he qualified. So a good day for most Ducati drivers.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say that Petrucci could have won this race, though, or do you think Marquez was always going to get it?
I think Marquez was always going to get it, If Petrucci had pulled away in the middle of the race, I think it could have been his, but with the way that Marquez stuck to him for the whole race, it just wasn't to be.
Interesting. So let's talk about Yamaha. Obviously, Rossi had a DNS because he wasn't even there. But let's focus on Vinales first before talking about the Tech 3 guys. Obviously, he finished P4 from pole, which on a standard weekend was alright for any rider. But to start from pole and finish in P4 with Lorenzo going off as well, would you just put that down to poor Yamaha pace in the wet or inexperience from Vinales?
I wouldn't put it down to either of those things, even though most of the Yamahas didn't have the best of days. Still, just Vinales seems to have the same problems in the wet with the Yamaha as Lorenzo did back when he was still on the Yamaha, I think we've seen a bit of a wet race before in the season, and Vinales was way off the pace compared to Rossi. So I think that to look at the real Yamaha pace in the wet, we'd have to look at Rossi. But it wasn't a horrible job from Vinales. After the first half of the race, his pace improved dramatically, and he was quite similar to the top guys. But he just had too much of a gap that was there from the start of the race. But overall, no. I think if it would have been dry, I think Vinales would have dominated, From the looks of free practice and qualifying, he just looked so smooth in the dry, and so just a man who hardly could have been beat.
Yeah, definitely, completely agree with that. What about the junior guys? And obviously Zarco P15 after running P7. I felt so sorry for him today. Obviously he ran out of fuel and had to literally run his bike over the finishing line, and Folger finished P9, but just quickly, good weekend from Tech 3?
Well, considering that Tech 3 were the only team that didn't test at Misano in the past few weeks, it was a really good weekend for Zarco and an okay weekend for Folger. But even watching yesterday qualifying, I think one of the British commentators said that Zarco looked a bit rough compared to his usual very smooth riding style, and I do have to agree, I think it is a bit of a consequence of not testing, but yeah, just what happens. And in the wet, both Yamahas the Tech 3 guys just didn't seem to have the pace of a lot of the other bikes, but in the end both kept it on two wheels, which not everybody did, and they profited from that. Sadly, Zarco had the problem. I'm not sure if it was running out of fuel or if it was a mechanical failure or anything, but it was very, very close to the end, which was kind of heartbreaking for him probably. And he ran the bike across the line. He still got the points, so yeah, a shame.
Yeah, definitely. So we look at Suzuki now. Obviously, Iannone had a DNF, probably a bike issue, just come in the pits and finished it off. And Rins finished P8, a good weekend for Rins. And I mean, if you look as well at Mark VDS, he's kind of got the same situation. You've got Miller in P6, showing again his brilliant pace in the wet, of course, after his Assen win last year. And then Rabat had a crash. So for those two teams, really, today, quite a similar situation, apart from the fact that the Honda team have probably got a few more points and are a lot happier.
Yeah, and mostly, yeah, but Rins has been quicker than all weekend, which we didn't really see through most of the season. And they just looked so off the pace in all conditions. It was just very, very weird to watch. And I don't know if that retirement was due to a bike issue or because he's just lacking motivation. Through a lot of the season, the Slovenian commentators were guessing about if he's still motivated enough to race at the top, and I'm kind of starting to doubt it as well. He's just missing that thing that he had at Ducati. Ducati, who was a brilliant rider, and now he's just missing something, and I don't know if it's psychological or if it's the bike, but he's just having a horrid time. As for Mark VDS, Miller, shows his brilliance in the wet. P6, a very good result for him considering where he started, and he even had his time deleted at the end of Q1, so a very good result. And Rabat, it was a better weekend than most for Rabat, but he just made a mistake in the tricky conditions. You can't really blame him. The conditions really were tricky. Although I was watching Moto3 and Moto2 before, and the track was by far the driest here in MotoGP. In Moto2, the track resembled a lake more than a racetrack. So, but should we talk about Miller's future? He's officially gonna drive for the Avintia team next season.
So you mean Rabat?
Yeah, Rabat.
Yeah, I was about to say, Miller's going to Pramac, isn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, Rabat's obviously got a future next year, of course. Good for you to bring it up. So obviously Rabat's got a ride. Do you think he's deserving of one?
No.
Well, fair enough. I think.
Well, obviously, how we treat Rabat in this podcast, we've been treating him like a god, so obviously he deserves the best bike ever. But, looking at it more realistically, he just hasn't impressed me really that much this season. If I were a team boss, I wouldn't look at hiring him. Yeah.
Definitely. So let's talk about Rayala then, I guess, if you've brought us onto that subject. So, do you think Baz is deserving of that ride next year?
Well, considering his consistency, not really, but today he really had a good race, at the start of the race, making up positions, running P5, and it looked like it was gonna be a good weekend, but in the end he threw it all away by crashing, and that's just a shame, and but it just happens in these conditions. So yeah, in the end, how many people even finished? 17?
I think it was probably that or 16, yeah. But there was quite a few crashes, one of them obviously including his teammate Barbara. But effectively, really, it was a double DNF for Rail, because obviously no points. But to run as high as P5 on that grid, it isn't bad going, is it, for Baz?
Yeah, definitely. He definitely did a good job, and sadly, the conditions were as they were, and he just threw it all away.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously KTM as well. KTM, obviously a new team for this year. We've been really positive about them in the podcast because we've just seen them come up and up and up. And today they've got more, consistent points, which is nice. Smith P10, Espargaro P11. I think there was something like 3 seconds between them. So that's, pretty close between the teammates. But would you say it's good to see Bradley Smith taking the bad battle to Espargaro?
Yeah, definitely it is. I don't know why he was so much slower than Espargaro during the most of the season, but he's been in this race. He really showed quite a good riding and very good pace, and hopefully that's gonna bring him the confidence to keep the battle up. And apparently Smith's got an ultimatum. Next weekend KTM are gonna have a wildcard rider. Mika Kallio's gonna be in Aragon, and if Smith doesn't beat Kallio, they're gonna switch roles. So Smith's gonna become the development rider for next season, and Kallio's gonna get a race seat next season. So
certainly interesting. Is that?
Yeah, that's
really.
Yeah, it's interesting, but this performance from Smith hopefully will give him the confidence to show all of his ability. I've seen through the past few years, he's been impressive on the bike, but he's just been a bit inconsistent, and hopefully that changes from now on.
Well, definitely. We've already lost Sam Lowe's. Don't lose Bradley Smith as well. But obviously, it's another Brit, Cal Crutchlow. P15 after another crash, but damage limitation for him, really. I don't think there's much to discuss there. Aspar, P12 qualifying for Abraham, really good in the end. But was off at turn 1, and his teammate then finished P12. So at least it was 4 points for Aspar in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, and qualifying was really... It was really weird watching Q1 at the end, because Folger and Miller had the times to go through, but then both times got deleted, and both Aspar bikes got through somehow. It was weird to watch, but I guess not the best weekends for them. In dry, in the qualifying, they did a good job, but in the wet, the bikes just... It didn't seem that they had a pace, and Abraham threw it all away in the first few turns, so... Yeah.
I did wonder who that was, to be honest, and you could just see on the telly someone flying off at the first corner.
But
obviously it ended up being Abraham. But 4 points for Aspar today, it's not too bad at all. The only team we haven't discussed now is Aprilia, which had a double DNF, which isn't brilliant at all. Of course, Sam Lowe's came off, which is, I hate to say, inevitable. But Espargaro coming off, was that a shock? I mean, to be fair, they've had a good season, but being the only Aprilia factory team, it's got to be not a great weekend going back to the base.
It isn't a brilliant weekend, but in the dry, the pace looked quite promising, and now in the wet, Espargaro wasn't doing too bad, but it just, again, he was just on the limit, and as much of the riders today, he just pushed a bit too hard, and that caused him to fall. And yeah, Sam Lowe's fall, that the the crash in the race was like his 5th crash of the weekend. I think he crashed in all three of the first 3 practice sessions and qualifying as well. So in the end, he isn't. Probably financially, he's outweighing Espargaro, even though he's probably got a lower paying contract in the end.
Yeah, but let's just not talk about Sam Lowe's, because we've talked about it. It's just the same story, isn't it? Unfortunately, every weekend.
Well, in the wet, today I think before he crashed, he was running like P10, so he seems to have some pace in the wet, but in the dry, he's nowhere basically.
Yeah, real shame, really. But that's it, really, for the Misano Italian Grand Prix today. But obviously, we'll look forward to Aragon, which is a fortnight away now. And last year, it was a Marquez Lorenzo Rossi podium. I doubt that's going to be the same, as we can hear Benny's cat in the background. But do you think Marquez will win again? He's on a bit of a roll now, obviously. Kind of equaling Dovizioso in the championship. Maybe time for a bit of Dovizioso's bad luck. We don't want it, probably. But what's your podium for that next race?
It's tough to predict. It has been in the past few years. I think it's been quite a good track for the Hondas, and I think it's gonna be one of those weekends again. Just a good weekend for Honda. So I think it's gonna be Marquez winning ahead of Pedrosa. And I can't quite decide who to put in third, Dovizioso or Vinales.
Interesting. I'm going to go, probably Marquez Pedrosa. Oh, I don't know, actually, because for some reason, Vinales hasn't been very consistent, has he, lately? So I'm going to go Marquez, Pedrosa, and then Lorenzo in third. That sounds bonkers, but we never know. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed. This may be a little bit short on MotoGP podcast in the hope that we can sort of revamp some of the Motorcast podcast. We had a bit of a group discussion last week, and we're going to try and revamp the podcast a little bit, just so it's not same old. But hopefully I've enjoyed this little changed up format, but it's pretty much still the same, isn't it? But thank you very much, Benny, for being our lovely guest today, as always, our brilliant analyst. And I've been Toby Jones, and we've had Benny as well on the MotorCast MotoGP podcast. And we'll see you in a fortnight for the Aragon podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye for now.
Bye.